I spent 6 years waiting for this exact moment. 6 years planning, preparing, positioning myself, and when it finally came, it was even better than I imagined. Let me back up because you need the full picture to understand why I'm not opening my door right now, why I'm sitting here listening to them pound and sob, and why every single second of this is absolutely worth it. I'm 32. For the first 24 years of my life, I was the family punching bag. Not literally, but emotionally. They beat the hell out of me. My dad Michael always made it clear I was the disappointment. My mom Phyllis would sigh whenever I walked into a room. My sister Brooke treated me like I was something she scraped off her shoe. My brother Knox just followed whatever they did, because God forbid he think for himself. The thing is, I wasn't a bad kid. I got decent grades, stayed out of trouble, tried to help around the house. But nothing I did was ever good enough because I wasn't Brooke or Knox. Brooke was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Knox was the baby, the one they coddled and protected. And me? I was just there, taking up space they wished someone better was occupying. Every family dinner was a comparison session. Brooke got promoted. Why couldn't I be more ambitious like her? Knox joined some recreational sports league. Why wasn't I more social and athletic like him? I brought home a B. Why wasn't it an A like Brooke always got? I made a friend. Why couldn't I be as popular as Knox? It never stopped. Every single thing I did was measured against them and found lacking. When I was 18, I left for college 3 states away. Best decision I ever made. I worked 2 jobs, took out loans, busted my rear end, and made something of myself. Got into software development, worked my way up, eventually started freelancing for major clients. By 26, I was making 6 figures. By 28, I bought my first investment property. By 30, I had 3. During all this, my family barely acknowledged my existence. I'd get the obligatory holiday text, the occasional call where my mom would spend 5 minutes asking about me and 50 minutes talking about Brooke's latest accomplishment or Knox's new girlfriend. I went to one family gathering when I was 27, and my dad introduced me to his golf buddies as his nephew. I left after 20 minutes and didn't go back. But here's the thing, and this is important. I never stopped paying attention to them. I followed Brooke on social media through fake accounts. I stayed in touch with one cousin who loved to gossip. I knew everything they were doing, every move they made, and I watched, and I waited. About 8 months ago, I found out through my cousin that my parents were selling their house, the big family home they'd lived in for 35 years. They were downsizing, she said, moving to something smaller and easier to maintain now that they were getting older. Brooke and Knox were helping them look for places. I did some digging. Turns out they'd made some questionable financial decisions over the years. Nothing illegal, just stupid. Too much spending, not enough saving. Dad had retired 2 years ago, and his pension wasn't as much as he'd expected. Mom had never worked. They'd been living beyond their means for years, and finally reality caught up. They needed to sell the house to pay off debts, and they needed to find somewhere affordable to rent until they could figure out their finances. Somewhere nice enough that they wouldn't lose face in front of their friends and neighbors. That's when I saw the listing. Perfect little house in a decent neighborhood about 20 minutes from where they currently lived. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, updated kitchen, listed as a rental. The price was exactly in their budget range. I bought it that week. Cash offer, closed in 10 days. The seller was thrilled. I kept everything under an LLC I'd set up years ago for my other properties. Different name, no connection to me personally. Then, I had my property manager list it for rent at the exact price I knew they could afford. My cousin told me they'd applied for it 3 weeks ago. She was so excited for them. Such a cute place, such a good deal, perfect for their needs. I approved their application immediately, had my property manager send them the lease, arrange the move-in date, handle everything professionally. They had no idea it was mine. Zero clue. So yesterday, I drove out to their old house to help them pack. Yeah, I actually showed up to help. First time I'd seen them in person in 5 years. My mom opened the door and did this weird double take, like she couldn't quite place who I was for a second. Dad just grunted and went back to taping boxes. Brooke rolled her eyes. Knox asked if I was staying for dinner like it was an inconvenience. But I smiled and said I wanted to help, wanted to be there for this big transition. They seemed surprised but didn't question it. I spent the morning packing up the kitchen, wrapping dishes, organizing everything carefully, being helpful, being pleasant. Around noon, I went to grab more boxes from the garage. I was walking back through the hallway when I heard them in the kitchen. The door was partially closed, but I could hear every word clearly. Dad's voice came first. That pathetic excuse for a son thinks we'll actually miss him. Finally, freedom from his constant failures. I stopped walking. just stood there with the boxes. Brooke laughed. You know he'll probably beg for the address of the new place like some lost puppy. God, he's so desperate for our approval even now. Mom chimed in next. 30 years of embarrassment. Every friend I have asks why we didn't cut him off sooner. I ran into Patricia at the grocery store last week and she had the nerve to ask if Jensen ever amounted to anything. I didn't even know what to say. Knox added his contribution. Remember when he actually thought we'd visit him? Called about 3 years ago asking if we wanted to see his apartment. As if we'd waste gas on that loser. Dad again. I already told the guys at the club he's not really ours. Just some charity case we're finally dumping. Made up some story about him being Phyllis's nephew we took in. Mom agreed. Best decision we ever made, this move. Should have cut him off years ago. At least Brooke and Knox turned out successful. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds. Then I smiled, carried the boxes into the kitchen, and asked where they wanted them. They all looked at me weird for a second, probably wondering if I'd heard anything. I just kept that same pleasant expression and went back to packing. I spent the rest of the day being the most helpful son imaginable, carried heavy furniture, organized the truck, made sure everything was labeled and packed efficiently. My dad actually said good job at one point, like he was shocked I could handle basic tasks. Around 6, I told them I had to head out, but wished them luck with the move tomorrow. Mom gave me this awkward half-hug. Dad shook my hand. Brooke and Knox barely looked up from their phones. I drove home, ordered pizza, and waited. The moving truck was scheduled to arrive at their new rental at 9 this morning. My property manager called me at 9:15. They'd showed up with the truck, all excited. He'd met them there with the keys. And then he'd informed them that, unfortunately, the property owner had decided to occupy the property himself and would not be moving forward with the rental. He handed them a check for their deposit and security, apologized for the inconvenience, and left. My cousin texted me at 9:45. Did you hear what happened to your parents? Some jerk landlord backed out last minute. They're devastated. Truck is loaded. House is sold. They have nowhere to go. I didn't respond. 10 o'clock, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. It was Brooke. Her voice was frantic. Jensen, we need your help. Something terrible happened with Mom and Dad's rental. Please call back? I deleted it. 11 o'clock, Knox called from his number. I answered this time. He tried to explain the situation. Asked if they could maybe stay with me temporarily while they figured things out. I asked him how he got my number since I'd changed it 3 years ago. He admitted Brooke had found me on social media and gotten it from my profile. I told him sorry, but my place wasn't suitable for guests. He started getting angry, saying family helps family. I said that was interesting coming from him and hung up. Noon, my dad called. I didn't even know he had my number. Must have gotten it from Knox. He didn't ask for help. He demanded it. Said I owed them after everything they'd done for me. Said it was my responsibility as their son to step up in a crisis. I asked him what exactly they'd done for me. He started listing things. Roof over my head, food, clothes. Basic parenting requirements. I thanked him for meeting the legal minimum standard for not having me removed by child services and ended the call. 2 o'clock, Mom called crying. Actually crying. Said they had nowhere to go. All their furniture was in the truck. They'd already closed on the house sale. She begged. She actually used the word, please. I told her I was sure they'd figure something out. They were resourceful people. She asked what that was supposed to mean. I said nothing, just that I had faith in them. She started sobbing harder. 4 o'clock, Brooke showed up at my house. I watched her through the window, pacing on my porch, knocking, ringing the bell. I sat on my couch drinking coffee until she finally left. 6 o'clock, Knox showed up. Same thing. Knocking, ringing, calling my phone. I ordered Chinese food and ignored him. 8 o'clock, my phone started blowing up with messages. Brooke saying I was being unreasonable. Knox calling me selfish. Dad saying I was proving what a failure I always was. Mom begging again? I read each one carefully. Saved them all. Then I put my phone on silent. And now it's midnight. I'm sitting here in my living room with all the lights off. And outside my door I can hear all 4 of them. Pounding, sobbing. Dad's voice is actually breaking. Talking about how they can't spend another night in that moving truck. How they have nowhere else to go. Mom is full-on wailing. Brooke is shouting about how could I do this to them. Knox is saying we're family. We're supposed to help each other. I'm just sitting here in the dark listening, remembering that conversation from yesterday. Every word, every laugh, every sneer, and I'm smiling. Because tomorrow morning I'm going to open that door, and we're going to have a very different conversation than the one they're expecting. Update 1. Okay, so the comments on my last post were split between people telling me I'm a legend and people saying I need to just let them in and hear them out. To the second group, you clearly didn't read the part about what they said about me in that kitchen. But fine. I opened the door, not because I felt bad and definitely not because I was going to help them. I opened it because I wanted to watch them squirm, because this whole thing was always leading to this exact moment. It was 1:15 in the morning when I finally turned on the porch light. I could see all four of them through the window. Mom was sitting on the steps with her face in her hands. Dad was leaning against the railing, looking about 10 years older than yesterday. Brooke was pacing like a caged animal. Knox was on his phone, probably trying to find a hotel that wasn't fully booked. I unlocked the door and opened it, just stood there in the doorway, not moving aside to let them in. Mom's head snapped up. She practically lunged forward, but I held up my hand. "We're talking out here," I said. "You wanted to talk, so talk." Dad straightened up and tried to pull together that authoritative voice he always used on me growing up. "Jensen, this is ridiculous. It's past 1 in the morning. We're exhausted. We've been in that moving truck since 9 this morning with nowhere to go. You're going to stand there and make your mother sit on these steps?" I looked at him. "Yeah, I am. Because last time I was under a roof with you people, I heard some really interesting things. The temperature on that porch dropped about 20 degrees. I watched all four of them go still. Brooke stopped pacing. Knox's thumb froze over his phone screen. Mom's crying actually paused. Knox recovered first. He tried the confused approach. "What are you talking about? Jensen, seriously. We need help. This isn't the time for whatever grudge you're holding." I leaned against the doorframe. "Yesterday in the kitchen, around noon, you guys were having quite the conversation about me. Want me to refresh your memories, or are we going to skip the part where you pretend you don't know what I mean?" Brooke's face went red. "You were eavesdropping? I was standing in the hallway of your parents' house while you all talked about me like I wasn't even human," I corrected her. "There's a difference. Eavesdropping implies I was trying to hear something private. You were just that careless." Dad tried a different tactic. He shifted into damage control mode, that businessman voice he used when he needed to smooth something over. "Look, Jensen, I don't know what you think you heard, but you're clearly misinterpreting. We were stressed. The move, the packing, everything happening at once. If something came out wrong—" "Nothing came out wrong," I interrupted. "It came out exactly how you meant it. Pathetic excuse for a son. Constant failures. Freedom from me. Charity case you're finally dumping. Should I keep going, or do you want to jump straight to the part where you explain which part I misinterpreted?" Mom stood up from the steps. Her voice went into that pleading tone, the one she'd use when she wanted something. "Jensen, honey, families say things they don't mean when they're stressed. We were just venting. You know we love you." "Do I?" I asked. "Because in 32 years, I don't think I've ever actually heard you say that. But I've heard plenty of other things. Every dinner table comparison, every disappointed sigh, every time you introduced me as your nephew instead of your son." "Yeah, Dad. I found out about that one." Dad's face went pale for a second before the anger took over. "I've never introduced you as my nephew. You told your golf buddies at the club 3 months ago that I was Phyllis's nephew you took in. Charity case. Those were your exact words. Twice, actually. Once in March, once in April. How do you even—" He started, but I cut him off. "I pay attention to things, Dad. I've been paying attention for a very long time. You all just never noticed because you were too busy comparing me to Brooke and Knox." Brooke jumped in then. "Oh my God, you're actually insane. You know that? We're standing here at 1 in the morning, exhausted, with all our belongings in a truck, nowhere to stay. And you're bringing up family dinners from years ago? I'm bringing up the fact that you called me desperate for approval like a lost puppy, not even 24 hours ago," I shot back. "I'm bringing up the fact that Knox here thought visiting me would be a waste of gas. I'm bringing up the fact that Mom told her friend Patricia she was embarrassed by my existence for 30 years. Mom actually gasped at that. She pressed her hand to her chest in this dramatic gesture. "I never said that. You're twisting things. You said your friends asked why you didn't cut me off sooner and that Patricia asked if I ever amounted to anything and you didn't know what to say. Those are your words, Mom, not twisted." "Exact." Knox finally looked up from his phone. His voice got defensive. "Okay, fine. Maybe we said some stuff. We were stressed, we were tired, we were talking privately. You weren't supposed to hear it. But seriously, you're going to hold that against us now? When we actually need help?" The audacity of that statement actually made me laugh. "You're right," I said. "I wasn't supposed to hear it. That's what makes it true. That's what you really think when you're being honest with each other. Not the fake stuff you say to my face, the real stuff you say when you think I'm not listening." Dad tried to take control again. "Fine. You heard some things that hurt your feelings. We can talk about that later. Right now, we have a practical problem that needs solving. Your mother and I are too old to sleep in a truck. We need a place to stay tonight, just tonight. We'll figure out something else tomorrow." "Why would I help you with that?" I asked. "Because we're your parents," Dad said, his voice rising. "Because regardless of what was said yesterday, we raised you. We fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head for 18 years. You owe us. I don't owe you anything, I said calmly. You did the legal minimum required to not have me removed by child services. Congratulations. That doesn't earn you a damn thing. Brooke lost it at that. She started yelling. You're unbelievable. You know what? Fine. Don't help us. We'll figure it out ourselves. We always do. We don't need you. We've never needed you. You're nothing but a bitter, pathetic excuse for a… She cut herself off when she saw my smile. Go ahead, I said. Finish that sentence. I really want to hear how this one ends. Pathetic excuse for a what, Brooke? She turned and stormed down the porch steps. Knox followed her. They stood by the truck, Brooke practically vibrating with rage while Knox tried to calm her down. I could see them having some kind of heated discussion, but couldn't hear it. Mom and Dad stayed on the porch. Mom tried a different approach. She sat back down on the steps and just looked at me. What do you want, Jensen? If this is about money, we can… It's not about money, I said. I have plenty of money. More than any of you, actually. 3 investment properties, 6-figure income, great credit score. Everything you assumed I'd never have because I wasn't Brooke or Knox. Then what? Mom asked. What do you want from us? I want you to understand something, I said. For 6 years, I've been waiting, watching, planning. I didn't randomly decide to be petty today. I've been building toward this since I was 26. Dad's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? That rental you applied for, I said. The perfect little house. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, exactly in your price range, listed at exactly the right time when you needed it most. You thought that was luck. The look on Dad's face was something I wish I could have captured on camera. The slow realization spreading across his features. Mom just looked confused for a second, then she got it too. No, she whispered. I bought it 3 weeks ago, I confirmed. Set up the LLC, made the cash offer, closed in 10 days. Had my property manager list it for rent at the exact price I knew you could afford from the financial info my cousin accidentally let slip. You never had a chance at that house. It was mine the whole time. Dad exploded. He came at me and I stepped back inside the doorway, ready to shut the door. He stopped himself just short of the threshold. You set this up? All of this? You bought a house just to watch you scramble, I finished. Just to see what you'd do when you actually needed something from the son you've spent 3 decades treating like garbage. Just to have this exact moment right here. You're sick, Dad said. There's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with me? I asked. I'm not the one who spent 30 years telling my kid he was worthless. I'm not the one who introduced him as a nephew. I'm not the one who laughed about him being desperate for approval. That's all you. I just decided to stop being the punching bag and start throwing punches back. Mom was crying again, but different this time. Less desperate, more horrified. How long have you been planning this? 6 years, I repeated. Since I found out Dad was calling me his nephew, that was the moment I decided I was done being invisible. Done being the failure. Done pretending we were actually family. Brooke and Knox had come back to the porch during this. They'd heard at least the last part. Knox looked genuinely shaken. You've been planning revenge on us for 6 years? Planning to protect myself, I corrected. You all made it very clear I wasn't worth your time or respect, so I made sure that when you eventually needed me, I'd be in a position to return the favor. Brooke's voice got cold. You're a psycho. You know that? Who does this to their own family? Who calls their own brother desperate and pathetic? I shot back. Who laughs about him being a waste of gas? You tell me, Brooke, who does that? She didn't have an answer. Dad had regrouped. I could see him thinking, calculating. He tried one more approach. Fine. You've made your point. We were terrible parents. We said horrible things. You caught us. You win. Now, can we please just talk about this like adults? Inside? Where it's warm? No, I said. We can talk right here. Or you can leave. Those are your options. Where are we supposed to go? Mom asked. The house is sold. Everything we own is in that truck. We have nowhere. You have Brooke, I said. She's so successful. 3-bedroom place, right? Take them in, Brooke. Show me that family helping family thing Knox was talking about. Brooke's face went white. I can't. My lease doesn't allow long-term guests. My landlord is really strict about that. Convenient, I said. What about you, Knox? You're always talking about being there for family. Knox shifted uncomfortably. My place is tiny. 1 bedroom. There's no room. But there's a couch, right? I asked. They could crash there for a few nights, unless their comfort isn't actually your priority. The silence that followed was beautiful. All 4 of them standing there realizing that none of them actually wanted to help each other. That I'd just done to them exactly what they'd done to me my entire life. Pointed out how little they actually cared. Dad tried one last time. Jensen, please. I'm asking you. Man to man. Your mother needs a bed, a bathroom, basic dignity. We can fight about everything else later. Then you should probably call a hotel, I said, because you're not getting that here. You're really going to leave us out here? Mom asked. Your own parents? You left me out in the cold for 30 years, I said. Emotionally, anyway. Didn't seem to bother you much. I'm sure you'll survive one night. I started to close the door. Dad put his hand on it. The look in his eyes was desperate now. All the anger drained out and replaced with something that looked like fear. What do you want? He asked again. There has to be something. Something we can do to fix this. I looked at all four of them standing on my porch at almost 2 in the morning. Exhausted. Desperate. Scared. Everything they'd made me feel for most of my life. I'll think about it, I said. And I closed the door. I watched through the window as they stood there for another 10 minutes. Watched them argue among themselves. Watched Brooke pull up hotel websites on her phone, probably seeing nothing but no vacancy signs everywhere because there was some kind of regional conference happening this week that had everything booked solid. Watched Knox make a call, probably trying to find someone, anyone, who would take them in. Watched Mom cry and Dad pace. Eventually, they got back in that moving truck. All four of them crammed into the cab, and they drove away. My phone has been going off nonstop. Cousin asking what happened. She heard they showed up at my place. Extended family members I haven't talked to in years, suddenly concerned about where my parents are staying. Brooke sent me a text calling me every name in the book. Knox sent one asking if I'm happy now. Dad sent one with a hotel name and a bill for the night, saying I owed them that much. I didn't respond to any of them. Because here's what none of them know yet. That house they were supposed to rent, I still own it. It's sitting empty, fully ready for move-in. And I'm going to keep it empty while I watch them scramble to find somewhere affordable in a market where decent rentals in their price range basically don't exist. This isn't over, not even close. This was just round 1, and I'm just getting started. Update 2. So it's been 5 days since the porch confrontation, and holy hell, you guys were right about this spiraling. But not in the way anyone expected. First, let me address the comments asking why I'm doing this. Someone said I should just let it go and move on. Let me be very clear. I spent 6 years building to this moment. I didn't work my butt off, make smart investments, and position myself financially just to let it go when they finally needed me. That's not moving on. That's rolling over. And I'm done being the family doormat. Anyway, here's what's happened since I closed that door on them. They spent that first night in a hotel 40 minutes away, the only place with vacancy because of that conference. Cost them $200 for one room. I know because Dad sent me the receipt with a message saying I should reimburse them since this was my fault. I didn't respond. The next morning, Thursday, my phone started ringing before 7. Not my parents this time. My Aunt Isabella, Dad's sister. I haven't talked to her in probably 4 years, but apparently the family grapevine moves fast. She started in immediately about how disappointed she was in me. How could I turn away my parents in their time of need? How family doesn't do this to each other. I let her talk for about 3 minutes before I asked if she knew what they said about me while I was helping them pack. She said that was irrelevant, that I was focusing on hurt feelings instead of the real crisis. I told her it was relevant to me. She said I was being childish. I asked if she'd be willing to let them stay with her since family helps family. She said her house was too small. I said mine was too. She said that wasn't the same thing. I asked her to explain the difference. She hung up. Knox called 2 hours later. His voice was different this time, less desperate and more calculated. He wanted to meet in person to talk, just him and me. No parents, no Brooke, brother to brother. He suggested this breakfast place near my house. I almost said no, but honestly I was curious what angle he was going to try. So I agreed. We met at a diner on Saturday morning. Knox showed up looking rough. Apparently they'd all been crashing at Brooke's place despite her lease restrictions. 4 people in a 2-bedroom apartment with most of their stuff in a storage unit they'd had to rent in a hurry. He ordered coffee and then dove right in. Look, I get it. You're angry. What they said was messed up. But Jensen, come on. This is extreme. They're our parents. They're getting older. Dad's 63. Mom's 60. They can't live out of a storage unit. They're not living out of a storage unit, I said. They're at Brooke's place. That's what you just told me. For now, Knox said. But her landlord is already asking questions about the extra cars in the parking lot. She's going to get fined or kicked out if they stay much longer. And they need to find something permanent. The market is insane right now. Everything in their price range is getting snapped up or requires credit checks they're not passing because of their debt. That's unfortunate, I said. Knox leaned forward. He tried the reasonable approach. The let's be logical voice. You have 3 rental properties. 3. Surely one of them has space. Even if it's just temporary. Even if you charge them rent. Just something to get them stable. Why would I do that? I asked. Because underneath all this anger, you're a good person, Knox said. I know you are. You showed up to help them pack even after years of distance. That means something. That means you still care. I showed up because I wanted to hear what they really thought of me when they didn't think I was listening, I corrected him. And I got exactly what I expected. So no, Knox, I'm not a good person. I'm the pathetic excuse for a son who wastes gas, remember? His jaw tightened. Are you ever going to let that go? Let what go? I asked. The 30 years of being treated like I didn't matter? Or just the part where I finally heard you all say it out loud? Knox sat back. He switched tactics. Fine. You want an apology? I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry for what I said, for how we've treated you over the years, for all of it. Are you sorry you did it, or sorry I heard it? I asked. He didn't have an answer for that. We sat there in silence for a minute. Then Knox tried something different. He started talking about when we were kids. Remembered when we used to play basketball in the driveway? He asked. Before everything got so competitive and weird? We used to be close. We were never close, I said. You followed Brooke's lead on everything. When she decided I wasn't worth her time, you fell in line. Don't rewrite history to make yourself feel better. That's not fair, Knox said. Neither is spending your whole childhood watching your siblings get praised for breathing while you get criticized for not breathing better, I shot back. Knox rubbed his face. Okay, you're right. We were terrible to you. But Jensen, at what point does the revenge become worse than what they did? You're actively sabotaging them now. Keeping that house empty when they need it. That's cruel. Is it more cruel than calling your son a charity case you're dumping? I asked. More cruel than laughing about him being desperate? More cruel than being embarrassed of his existence for 3 decades? Knox went quiet again. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. Dad didn't want another kid, you know. After Brooke and me. He'd wanted to stop at 2. Mom pushed for you. There was this whole thing where they almost separated over it. He blamed her for years, and I think maybe he took that out on you without realizing it. I stared at him. You're telling me this why? Because I'm trying to help you understand, Knox said. It wasn't really about you. It was about their issues. You just got caught in the middle, so that makes it okay? I asked. Dad resented my existence because Mom wanted me and he didn't, and I'm supposed to just understand and forgive? I'm not saying forgive, Knox said. I'm saying maybe there's context that explains things. Context doesn't change what happened, I said. And knowing Dad never wanted me doesn't make me want to help him. It makes me want to help him even less. Knox looked defeated. What's it going to take, Jensen? Seriously, what do they have to do to fix this? I don't know if they can, I said. But starting with an actual acknowledgement of what they did would be nice. Not this explaining away garbage. Not this let's provide context for abuse nonsense. An actual admission that they treated me like dirt for 30 years. And it was wrong. Knox nodded slowly, like he was thinking. Then he said he'd talk to them, see if he could get them to understand. He paid for his coffee and left. I sat there for another 20 minutes thinking about what he'd said, about Dad not wanting me, about resentment shaping 3 decades of my life. And instead of making me feel sympathy, it just made me angrier. That afternoon, I got a group text. Someone had created a family group chat and added me to it. Aunt Isabella, Uncle Reuben, who I'd met maybe twice in my life, 2 cousins I barely knew, and my parents. The text was from Dad. It was this long message about how they were facing a housing crisis, how they needed family support, how they were disappointed that some family members were choosing to hold grudges instead of helping. It was clearly directed at me without naming me. Very passive-aggressive. Very Dad. Aunt Isabella chimed in agreeing. Uncle Reuben said something about how in his day, children respected their parents no matter what. One of the cousins I didn't know sent a prayer hands emoji. I typed out a response. Since we're all being so open and honest, let me share what I heard 5 days ago. And I wrote out every single thing they'd said in that kitchen. Verbatim. Every insult, every laugh, every sneer. The group chat went silent. Then Brooke exploded. She started typing furiously about how I was taking things out of context, how I was twisting their words, how I was manipulating the situation, about how they'd been under stress and I was using a private conversation to publicly humiliate them. I responded asking which part I'd taken out of context. The part where Dad called me pathetic? The part where she called me desperate? The part where Mom said I was 30 years of embarrassment? Uncle Reuben left the chat. Then one of the cousins. Then the other cousin. Aunt Isabella sent a private message. I don't know what to believe anymore. This is between you and them. Leave me out of it. Then she left the chat too. The only ones left were me, my parents, Knox, and Brooke. The chat stayed quiet for about an hour. Then Mom sent a message. We need to talk. In person. All of us. Can we please do that? I said sure. My house. Tomorrow at 2. Dad responded that they'd be there. Sunday at 2 they showed up. All 4 of them. They looked worse than Thursday night. Dad had bags under his eyes. Mom's hair was greasy like she hadn't showered. Brooke was in sweatpants, which I'd never seen her wear in public. Knox looked like he hadn't slept. I let them in this time. We all sat in my living room, me on one side, them on the other, like a negotiation. Mom started. She'd clearly prepared something. Jensen, we owe you an apology. A real one. What we said in that kitchen was wrong. It was cruel. It was unfair. We've spent years taking our frustrations out on you, and that wasn't okay. Dad jumped in. We're not perfect parents. We made mistakes. But we're trying to make it right now. We're asking for a chance to rebuild this relationship. I looked at all four of them. Is that it? What do you mean, is that it? Brooke asked. I mean, is that all you have to say? I asked. A generic apology about mistakes and frustrations? After 30 years of treating me like garbage? What else do you want? Dad asked. Blood? I want specifics, I said. I want you to acknowledge specific things you did, not vague references to mistakes, actual incidents, actual patterns, actual harm. They looked at each other like they were conferring silently. Then Knox spoke up. Okay, I'm sorry for calling you desperate for approval. I'm sorry for saying visiting you would be a waste of gas. I'm sorry for following Brooke's lead on everything instead of forming my own relationship with. That was surprisingly direct. I nodded at Knox. Brooke went next, but she was clearly struggling. I'm sorry for laughing at you, for treating you like you didn't matter, for being competitive in a way that was destructive. Mom took a breath. I'm sorry for comparing you to your siblings constantly, for expressing disappointment instead of support, for telling people I was embarrassed by you. Dad was last. He looked like every word was physically painful. I'm sorry for introducing you as a nephew, for calling you a charity case, for taking out my issues with your mother on you, for not wanting you and letting that shape how I treated you. The room went completely silent after that last admission. So Knox told you, I said, about the conversation at breakfast. He thought it might help, Knox said quietly. Does it? Dad asked. Does knowing I resented your existence but I'm admitting it now make any difference? I sat there looking at all of them, at their exhausted faces, their desperation, their genuine discomfort at having to say all this out loud. You want to know what makes a difference? I asked. What makes a difference is that it took you losing everything and being desperate before you could manage basic honesty. What makes a difference is that you're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught and you're sorry you need something from me now. That's not true, Mom said. Isn't it? I asked. If I hadn't overheard you in that kitchen, if you'd successfully moved into that rental, would we be having this conversation? Would you have ever apologized? None of them answered. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to figure out your housing situation on your own. You're going to deal with the consequences of your financial decisions and your lack of planning, and you're going to do it without me. Jensen, please, Mom started. I'm not done, I interrupted. And while you're doing that, you're going to think about every single time you made me feel small, every comparison, every dismissal, every time you treated me like I didn't belong in my own family. You're going to sit with that, really sit with it. And then what? Dad asked. After we've suffered enough for your satisfaction, then you'll help? I smiled. I haven't decided yet. I stood up. Our meeting was over. They all stood too, but nobody moved toward the door. They just stood there like they were waiting for me to change my mind. Get out, I said. They left. That was yesterday. Today, my property manager called. Apparently, someone's been driving by that rental house repeatedly, sitting outside in a truck, taking photos. He wanted to know if I knew anything about it. I told him to keep an eye on it, but not to worry. Just some people who lost out on the rental, probably upset about it. But I know exactly who it is, and I know exactly what they're thinking. They're thinking if they can prove I'm keeping it empty out of spite, maybe they can do something about it. Report me for something. Find some angle. They're wrong. But I'm enjoying watching them try. Because the thing they still don't understand is that I'm not doing this impulsively. Every move I've made has been calculated. Every step has been planned. And I'm nowhere near finished. Round 3 is about to start. And they have no idea what's coming. Final update. It's been 3 weeks since my last update, and I'm writing this from my office because I need to get all of this down while it's still fresh. Some of you called me a psychopath in the comments. Others said I was justified. A few said I should have gone further. Well, buckle up because I went further. Way further. First, the immediate aftermath of that Sunday meeting. They stayed at Brooke's place for another week before her landlord issued a formal violation notice. Too many occupants, too many vehicles, too much noise from the constant fighting they were doing. She had 72 hours to fix it or face eviction and a lease-breaking penalty of 3 months' rent. Knox called me Tuesday night absolutely frantic. Brooke's losing her apartment because of this. You've made your point. Please just tell us what we need to do to fix this. I told him it wasn't my problem that they couldn't figure out their housing situation. He said they'd looked at 17 different rentals and couldn't get approved for any of them because of the debt showing up on Dad's credit report. Mom's credit was even worse, apparently. They'd been declined. What about you and Brooke? I asked. Your credit is fine. Rent something under your names. Knox got defensive. Why should we tank our financial futures for this? Why should we take on a lease we can't afford long-term just to help them temporarily? So family only helps family when it's convenient, I said. Got it. He hung up on me. Thursday morning, my property manager called again. The people watching the house had escalated. They'd approached him when he was doing a routine check, asked him directly why the property was sitting empty, said they'd been the approved tenants and wanted to know what legal recourse they had. He'd explained that property owners have the right to occupy their own properties and that the lease had never been signed, so there was no legal standing. But he was concerned they might try something else. Maybe file some kind of complaint or report me for housing discrimination or something equally desperate. I told him not to worry. I'd handle it. That night, I sent a group text to my parents, Brooke and Knox. Let's meet tomorrow. Friday, noon. The park on Riverside, the one with the pavilions. We need to have a real conversation. Dad responded first. Finally ready to be reasonable? I didn't answer. Friday, I got there early and claimed one of the covered picnic areas. They showed up together, all four of them looking worse than before. Mom had lost weight. Dad moved slower, like the stress was physically aging him. Brooke's hair wasn't styled, just pulled back in a messy ponytail. Knox had this permanent exhaustion in his eyes. They sat across from me at the picnic table. The energy was different this time, less desperate, more angry, like they'd collectively decided to try a harder approach. Dad started. We want answers, real answers, not games, not punishments. We want to know what it's going to take for you to rent us that house. You can't afford to rent from me, I said calmly. Try us, Brooke snapped. Name your price. It's not about price, I said. It's about the fact that I don't want you as tenants. I don't trust you to pay rent. I don't trust you to maintain the property. I don't trust you, period. Mom's voice went shrill. Then why did you buy it? Why did you set all this up just to torture us? I bought it because I knew you'd need it eventually, I said. I bought it because I wanted to be in control of your options. I bought it because for 6 years I've been positioning myself to have power over you, the way you had power over me my entire childhood. Knox leaned forward. Okay, you have power. You've proven that. You win. We get it. We were terrible. We acknowledge that. Now can we move forward? Forward to what? I asked. To me helping you? Why would I do that? Because we're family, Brooke yelled. People kept walking past our pavilion, staring at us. She lowered her voice, but the intensity stayed. Whether you like it or not, we're blood. That has to mean something. It means I know exactly how to hurt you, I said. That's what it means to me. Dad's face went red. He stood up. You're enjoying this. Watching us struggle, watching us scramble, you're getting off on it. Yeah, I am, I said. Every single second. Does that make me a bad person? Probably, but I learned from the best. Dad lunged forward, but Knox grabbed his arm. They had this quick, intense exchange. Knox basically physically restraining him while Brooke got between them and me. The whole scene was attracting attention from other people in the park. When everyone sat back down, Mom tried again. Her voice was so tired. Jensen, please. I'm begging you. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof. We can't keep living like this. 4 of us in Brooke's apartment, most of our belongings in storage that's costing us $200 a month, eating takeout every day because there's no kitchen space. This is killing us. Good, I said. The word just hung there in the air between us. Brooke stared at me. You actually want us to suffer? I want you to understand what it feels like, I said. To be unwanted, to be a burden, to know that the people who are supposed to love you actually resent your existence. You said it yourself, Dad. You never wanted me. Mom pushed for me, and you blamed me for it. Well, now you get to feel what that's like. Being somewhere you're not wanted. Needing help from someone who wishes you didn't exist. The silence after that was deafening. Then Knox spoke up and his voice was different, calculated. You know what I think? I think you're going to keep that house empty forever just to spite us. I think there's nothing we can do or say that will change your mind. So we need to accept that and figure out another plan. Smart boy, I said, finally catching on. So we'll figure it out, Knox continued. We'll find something. It'll take time and it'll be hard, but we'll manage. And in 5 years, 10 years, when you're sitting alone wondering why no one talks to you, remember that you did this. You chose revenge over family. I'm already alone, I said. I've been alone since I was 6 years old, and Brooke told me I was adopted at her birthday party, and you all laughed. I've been alone since I was 9, and Dad told me I was the reason he drank. I've been alone since I was 12, and Mom said she wished I'd been the daughter she wanted instead. I've been alone since I was 15, and you told your friends I was your weird cousin who lived with you. So the idea that I'll regret being alone? I've had 32 years of practice. I watched their faces as each memory landed, watched them realize I'd kept score of everything, every single wound, every single moment. Mom started crying. I didn't know you heard that. The daughter comment. You were supposed to be at soccer practice. I quit soccer 3 weeks earlier, I said. But no one noticed because no one cared. Dad put his head in his hands. This is insane. We're sitting here relitigating decades-old conversations while we have an actual crisis happening right now. The crisis is the point, I said. That's what you're not getting. This isn't a coincidence. This isn't bad timing. I created this crisis. I engineered it specifically. Brooke's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? I mean, I didn't just buy the rental house, I said. I've been tracking your finances for 2 years. I knew about the debts. I knew about Dad's pension shortfall. I knew about the credit card bills and the home equity line of credit you maxed out. How could you possibly? Knox started. Your cousin loves to talk, I interrupted. And people say a lot on social media when they don't think anyone's paying attention. Plus, Mom complains to her friends in public places. I heard about your financial troubles from her friend Patricia at the grocery store 18 months ago when I was shopping 2 aisles over. They all just stared at me. You've been stalking us, Brooke said. I've been paying attention, I corrected. There's a difference. And what I learned was that you were headed for trouble. So I positioned myself to be there when you fell. And then I made sure you fell harder. What else? Dad asked. His voice was flat. What else did you do? I smiled. Remember that storage facility you're using? The one Knox found? The one with the amazing first-month special? Knox's face went pale. I own a percentage stake in that facility through one of my investment groups, I said. The manager is a friend. I made sure you got that special rate. I also made sure that when the rate goes up next month, it goes up to market rate, which is $450 a month for the size unit you need, Mom gasped. But wait, there's more, I said, actually enjoying this. Dad, that temp work you picked up last week? The one-off consulting gig through that employment agency? How do you know about that? Dad asked. I know the owner, I said. We go way back. He placed you specifically because I asked him to. And he's going to keep sending you little gigs, just enough to keep you hopeful, not enough to actually solve your problems. You're sabotaging his work now, Brooke asked. I'm controlling his options, I said. There's a difference. Knox stood up. He looked like he might actually throw up. You're sick. You're actually sick. This isn't revenge anymore. This is psychological torture. This is showing you what it feels like, I said. To have someone controlling your life while pretending they're not. To work hard for nothing. To hope for things that will never happen. Welcome to my childhood. I continued before anyone could interrupt. Brooke, that interview you have next week? The one for the promotion? Your boss already decided on the other candidate 2 weeks ago, but they're going through the motions to seem fair. I know because I play golf with his brother-in-law. Brooke's face crumbled. And Knox, that apartment you were looking at? The one bedroom that just came available in your price range? It's mine. Property number 3. You're not getting it. Knox sat back down heavily. So let me make this very clear, I said. Every option you think you have, I'm 3 steps ahead of it. Every opportunity you think you see, I've already closed it or I'm about to. Every plan you make, I know about it and I'm ready to counter it. You're not getting out of this situation. Not easily. Not quickly. Maybe not at all. This is illegal, Dad said. This has to be illegal. Harassment or intimidation or something. It's not, I said. I own properties. I have business relationships. I make investments. All completely legal. You just happen to keep running into my sphere of influence. We could tell people, Mom said weakly. The family. Everyone. What you're doing. Go ahead, I said. I already told them what you said about me. Half of them blocked you after that group chat. The other half don't want to get involved. Who do you think they'll believe? The successful son who's built a life for himself? Or the parents who called him a charity case? The fight went out of all of them at once. I could see it. The moment they realized they were trapped. What do you want? Dad asked finally. There has to be something. Something that ends this. I stood up from the picnic table. I want you to spend the next 6 months exactly like this. Struggling, scrambling, desperate. I want you to wake up every day not knowing how you're going to solve your problems. I want you to feel small and powerless and unwanted. And then, after 6 months, if you've learned what that feels like, we'll talk. And if we haven't, Knox asked, then it continues, I said. Indefinitely. I started walking away. Mom called after me. Jensen, please, we're sorry. We're so sorry. I turned back. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you're facing consequences. That's not the same thing. I left them sitting there at that picnic table. Drove home. Sat in my living room with the lights off, just like that first night. That was a week ago. Since then, here's what's happened. Brooke moved back in with a friend because she couldn't handle the crowding anymore. My parents are sleeping in Knox's living room. The storage rate did go up. Dad's temp gig ended with no new work lined up. Mom had a panic attack bad enough that Knox took her to urgent care. Brooke's promotion went to the other candidate like I knew it would. They tried to get my cousin to mediate. She refused. Said this was too messy and she couldn't take sides. Aunt Isabella called me once to tell me I was being cruel. I asked if she was offering to house them. She said, no. I said then her opinion didn't matter. My phone still gets messages every few days, usually from Knox, sometimes from Mom, asking if I'm ready to talk, if I've reconsidered, if there's any path forward. I haven't responded to any of them. Because here's the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand. I'm not doing this to eventually forgive them. I'm not doing this to teach them a lesson so we can rebuild our relationship. I'm doing this because for 30 years they made me feel worthless. And now I'm returning the favor. They wanted freedom from their pathetic failure of a son. They got it. They wanted to dump the charity case. Done. They wanted to finally be rid of the embarrassment. Well, congratulations. You're rid of me. And now you get to see what life looks like when the person you threw away has all the power, and you have none. Someone in my last update said I should let this go before it consumes me. But see, it already consumed me. Years ago. When I was 8 and Dad missed my birthday because he was at Brooke's dance recital. When I was 13 and Mom told her book club I was the difficult child. When I was 17 and Knox told his friends I was probably going to end up in a dead-end job. It consumed me then. Now it's just fueling me. And you know what the really beautiful part is? They still don't know about my other 2 properties. The ones I bought specifically in the neighborhoods they're looking at. The ones that will come available right when they're most desperate. The ones they'll apply for without knowing they're mine until after I decline their applications. This isn't over. This is just the part where they realize how long it's going to last. They wanted me gone? Fine. I'm gone. But I'm taking everything they thought they could count on with me. Someone asked in the comments if I'm happy now. I'm not happy. I don't know if I'll ever be happy in the way normal people are, but I'm satisfied. And after 32 years of being the family punching bag, satisfaction is enough. They're still driving past that empty rental house, by the way, my property manager told me. Sometimes late at night, just sitting there looking at it. The home they almost had. The solution they were so close to. I think I'll keep it empty for the full 6 months. Just as a reminder. A monument to what happens when you treat people like they don't matter. And if they somehow make it through the next 6 months, if they survive this and come out the other side, well, I've got 6 more years of plans ready to go. Because that's the thing about revenge. When you've been planning it for 6 years, you don't just have one move prepared. You have dozens. And I'm barely getting started. Welcome to the rest of your lives, family. Hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed mine.